Good morning, everyone. Kate Bora and Fiona Pearman joining you for this week's Facebook Live, where we're continuing to dig into burnout and overload. Last week, we talked a little bit more about what is burnout. It's something that is, I guess, very prevalent at the moment. Lots of people and organisations talking about it. Today, we want to dig into how do you actually deal with burnout and overwhelm. And I think often the default for this conversation is to look at our situation. So if it's the workplace, unrealistic demands or workload expectations, we focus on that external situation, and absolutely that has our place. And the other big part is we look at coping strategies. So how we actually are managing ourselves, our resilience, looking at sleep, meditation, all of those sorts of things. And I think both of those conversations are important, but the piece that's often missing here is actually, really taking some time to stop, to get really honest with ourselves and look at what's going on inside our world, the decisions we're making, the actions we're taking that are leading to some of the consequences that inevitably people are experiencing.
Yeah, I think what we know is the first piece is to acknowledge the truth of what's happening, to actually be willing to slow down a little bit and examine what's going on for me, and not necessarily seeing it as different or discrete pieces, but starting to understand the whole picture. Bringing all those elements together, looking at what's going on externally, what you feel or you believe the expectations are in a work environment, but also what your expectations of yourself are and what you're looking at. And while we keep those conversations or those ideas separate, we're unlikely to get to really the deeper truth of what's truly going on. And that's very much what our work, in our book, but also in the Acts of Confidence program, we're really interested in how do you better understand what's actually happening for you beneath the surface. And, from that place, once we get that level of clarity, all sorts of things start to shift in our world and mean we can actually address this bigger conversation of burnout, overwhelm, and stress.
Yeah, we've seen examples, right, of clients who have eventually come to our program who have talked about that repeating cycle. I thought it was my organization, but that I leave the organization, I start a new role, and I have the same experience again and again and again. And when they've been able to take some time and really look at what's going on internally, maybe it's around expectations of performance, delivery expectations, when they've actually been able to look at the role they're playing in the situation. And again, the choices they're making, the actions they're taking, and often then, for example, what's driving that behavior. We start to get into the beliefs, the default behaviors around what is necessary. We talk a lot about perfectionism, right? And the driving force in order to deliver at a certain level. And so when we can start to get beneath the surface, right? If we look at this a little bit like an iceberg, below the waterline, and see what's driving some of the behaviors and really calibrate that, get honest with ourselves about it, then we can start to make some new choices. I think what's important in that discovery process is self-compassion, and we talk a lot about that in our work. But secondly, it's looking at the cost of some of these mindsets and behaviors, because I think it's really important when we think about behavior change to really acknowledge what's going on, right? What's the overwhelm, the burnout? No one ever chooses to be there. But equally getting clear about what's going on, what's driving the behavior, but equally what it's costing us personally and professionally.
Yeah, I think this is the opportunity, and we're always encouraging all of our clients to be gentle with themselves around this, because it can actually be quite confronting to realize that it's actually part of me. Yes, of course, there are some external elements, but it's also my own drivers, my own desire to get everything done, to say yes to everything that comes my way, to be helpful to others. All of these are very good qualities. And in isolation, they can be quite useful. But when we layer them in, and then we've got so much demand on top of that, and we're trying to be this person that we love being, the cost of that can be quite profound. And it's the willingness, I think, to examine that in a space of not making it wrong. It's not wrong that you've defaulted to these things. They're good qualities. And when overused, they can become actually a burden. And that's really the nexus of our work here, is we all have choice. Sometimes it feels like we don't, but once we get clear, once we've got into that iceberg and we can see what's really going on, it's amazing that clarity means we can make good and informed choices. And when we do that, it's like the world shifts for us. Our act of confidence number 1 is get clear. From that place of clarity, it's almost as though there's a freedom now. I can continue doing things the way I'm doing, but I've also got another choice, which means might be a bit hard. It might mean saying no to some things, setting and enforcing boundaries, act of confidence number 6. And I'm doing that from an informed place, from a place of self-compassion and self-awareness.
The word that dropped in for me absolutely was freedom. I think the beautiful part about this is it's not about doing more. It's actually just about taking a moment to reflect, to acknowledge and build some awareness around what's going on, and then to take small acts of confidence. And when we do that repeatedly over time, that's when our experience of personally and professionally changes. And that's the magic of the program. I think we're going to leave it there, Fee. If you've enjoyed today's confidence conversation, we would love to hear from you. Of course, if you know someone who would benefit particularly from this conversation, we'd love for you to share that with them in your network. We are kicking off our next Acts of Confidence program, final one for the year, Fee, next Wednesday, the 4th of October. So if you're interested in our work, if you've been tuning into these videos, found them super helpful, and are ready to perhaps go to the next level and join us in an incredible cohort. We've got our biggest group so far coming through the program this year. So if you would like to understand a little bit more about that, find out more, drop us a note. We can jump on a quick call and see if you're a good fit for the program. Make sure we can work with you to understand what your big act of confidence might be, and get you all set up. If you do want some more information, get in touch with us on our Facebook page, or you can head to our website, coreconfidence.com.au, and find our contact details there.